Salutations from space and aloha from Earth, friends. I'm so excited to bring you into the mysteries of Earth astrology. Today, we will journey with the sun to learn more about the Earth. This is a class on golden time, and actually one of three. So this will be part one. Eventually, I will teach about solar days, solar years, and solar ages, which are really Earth days, Earth years, and Earth ages. So this is part one, where we will explore the seasons of the day. Something that is so natural and organic to our embodied experience of our planet as Earthlings, and something that kind of oddly is often confusing for astrology students. It's kind of like the more astrology you've studied, at least I'll say it like this, like the more kind of modern astrology classes folks have taken, the more I find it's difficult to help them connect their daily lived experience of the rising, reaching, resting, and rooting of the sun and the planets in the sky, and to bring that back into the chart. So I'm very excited to focus today on the seasons of the day in this course here on golden time. Now, this is one of the many classes in the golden year, the School of Earthstrology, which is not an astronomy school. I love teaching astronomy for astrologers, and we'll do some of that today. The school is about astrology, about correspondences, right? This year we'll be studying sect and elements and modalities and nodes and soul path and the lots of the moon and, essential dignity, planetary phase, aspect theory, tuning into the heavenly houses, how they relate one another. We'll be speaking about a archetype of a sign each month. We're going to follow the sun in this golden year and do golden time, right? But this class is an astronomy for astrologers class because I want the chart to open up for you not only as a map of the soul, a beautiful truth, but as a map of the sky in a moment's time, as experienced from a specific space or place on Earth. And Earthstrology, because we begin with the most important planet first. So golden time is really our experience of the sun that helps us understand our planet Earth, whose glyph is the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. So one of the greatest gifts of learning to live Earthstrologically is reconnecting with natural time. We have these strange calendars of 30-day or 31-day months, which have nothing to do with the moon, although they are close to solar months, and I'll get back to that in part two of this transmission. Next year, the silver year, we will be reclaiming our connection to the true natural time of the month, although we will find that that's not an easy thing to do, especially if we want to attempt to synchronize the rhythms of silver moon and gold sun. It was one of the greatest exercises that has riddled calendar keepers since the beginning of Earth time, we can imagine. But the way that we are stuck on clock time and on weird, strange, seemingly out of sync Gregorian calendar time, right? It's taking us away from having a natural experience of Earth's motions, of Earth astronomy, which again, we experience here on Earth by following the light. Golden time is one of our great initiations into reclaiming an embodied earthly experience of natural time, which is very different than magical time. Those of you in the golden year of Earthstronomy will find a bonus class on magical time and planetary days and hours, right? It's a very different scene. It's a beautiful thing, and perhaps it whispers to like the fabric of reality, maybe something that's deeper than we can see, or maybe it's just a construct. I mean, these are things that we hear often from wise teachers. This one of my favorite, Alan Watts, who said the future is a concept. It doesn't exist. There is no such thing as tomorrow. There never will be, because time is always now. That's one of the things we discover when we stop talking to ourselves and stop thinking. We find there is only present, only an eternal now. Now, part of me loves this, right? I like to say always that astrology should be a way in, not a way out. And a way out that shows itself in many ways. One of them is, blaming some part of our chart on, a bad behavior that we refuse to bring our attention to and shift, right? So that's astrology as a way out in an unhealthy way. Another way that astrology can be a way out is giving us the opportunities to run away from this moment. Just like getting stuck in our past and consistently bringing every timing technique we have to understand that painful day, which is a wonderful thing, but can also take us so far away from the now, or at least apparently, future tripping with our astrological techniques, journeying, to a year we won't even live to see because we need to run away from the weirdness of this moment at full speed. We want, of course, our glances into the past and into the future, the forecasting, and seeing these wheels within wheels and great cycles and how the past and the future will relate. Like, this is an opportunity to bring us back here and deeper into the present moment. I mean, consider that you can only contemplate the past or trip on the future from this moment now. Right, so much of me agrees with this beautiful transmission from Alan Watts. On another level, this idea that time is illusion, seems to betray the truth that Alan Watts in his later years looked very different than the Alan Watts you see currently on the screen. The cat came and pushed the hands of the clock around, and a beard was grown, and the white hairs came. And I mean, perhaps Mr. Watts's liver aged even faster than the rest of him. It was pretty early in his life when he moved to the other side around the time of the second Saturn return. He died in his sleep of congenitive heart failure, I believe, right here in the Bay Area of California, where I currently sit. And I'm saddened that I will never meet this great teacher in this body. I meet him often in mind and soul, and contemplating these wonderful teachings that are available. We are living in a culture entirely hypnotized by the illusion of time, said Alan Watts. This can be true without saying that time itself is completely false, right? I mean, I think that we would find Mr. Watts, denying the idea that, as we astrologers would say, that he was born on sun's hour of Mars's day. Alan Watts was not a great fan of astrology, and I think that perhaps he wasn't able to see some of the great astrologers, and I don't know. But anyway, I mean, would Mr. Watts even agree that this place where he was born on Earth was called Chislehurst? Like, who draws the lines, right? Who called it January 6th? And we can find an amazing coincidence that one who came up as a minister was born on Epiphany, but in a year called 1915. Who decides? Like, that's why, because it was that many years after the birth of Christ. Was it? Can the sun really be born? And doesn't that happen every year? if you watch my magical time bonus class, you will find why we could say that perhaps this was sun's hour of Mars's day. Maybe it was sun's hour of Saturn's night. And again, I don't feel I would convince Alan Watts of the merit of that contemplation for you, yes. But wouldn't he have to agree that he was born in the penultimate hour of a long ass night? I mean, maybe not that penultimate hour thing, like who decides how to divide a day? Why do we have 24 hours in the first place? And I address that question, that mystery in the magical time class. We find some interesting answers. There are other answers that you School of Earthstrology students will find as we play with number magic and the golden ratio and diving deep into the Fibonacci sequence and Pythagorean roots. And like, there's some cool mysteries that help us see why 24 besides perhaps just 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night, right? But while I would not attempt to convince someone who sees time as some human construct of the merit of a 60-minute hour with 60 seconds in each minute, I can show you where that happened historically. I'm personally journeying into, is that actually a natural thing? It's pretty hard to deny the reality of golden natural time called day and night, right? And if you know how to read a chart, you can see that Alan Watts here was born at the end of the dark hours of this particular spin that brought him in. And it was the end of a long ass night, technically speaking. Why? Because Mr. Watts was born at a time, shortly after that time each year, when the trunk of the world tree, the Earth's south rotational pole, is leaning towards the light. This is a time that we astrologers, at least tropical astrologers, call sun's ingress into tropical Capricorn. This is known as south solstice to me because I like to, well, act locally, experience locally, but contemplate globally, right? So I don't want to call this winter solstice because winter solstice for me is summer solstice for those down under. Even it's strange to consider south of the equator down under, although later I will show you some earthstronomical reasons why there's some merit to this, and it helps support the truth that the tropical zodiac, which if it works for northern and southern hemispherians alike, let alone the many biospheres within each of the hemispheres, it's not seasonal. In the third class of this natural time or golden time exploration, we will see that the tropical zodiac is certainly not constellational, right? Well, what is it? And we will find it is directional. One thing I can tell you that's absolutely true is that when the sun moves into the sign of tropical Capricorn, this is December solstice, Capricorn solstice, south solstice, the sun in that moment's time each year shines directly overhead for a location on Earth's Tropic of Capricorn. When the sun ingresses Capricorn, it shines above the Tropic of Capricorn. When the sun ingresses tropical Capricorn, it shines directly above the Tropic of Capricorn. This is undeniable truth. Anyway, at that time, the sun literally is as far as it can get from Chislehurst, England, where Alan Watts was born. And this sets up the longest night of the year, winter solstice for the Northern Hemisphere, right? And I don't believe anyone, even if they have that ability to, well, stop time, right? And stop thought, which separates from oneness and the all that is, you know. And if you explore the first sacred geometry number magic class of our course, you will find why I call sunlight one light, right? But here on Earth, we experience things like short days and really long nights. We call these seasons, right? Now, while the tropical zodiac has to be more than seasonal if it works for both hemispheres, some argue that, but I know so many Southern hemispherians who swear by their tropical astrology chart. And for me, they would be the authorities. If the tropical zodiac works for both hemispheres, south and north, then obviously it's not a seasonal thing. Now, this does not mean we should not connect to our own local seasonal experience of the heavenly happenings, right? I mean, this is one of the principal intents of the golden year, is for us to have a physical, earthly, embodied connection to the heavenly happenings, right? Why do the seasons turn? And the reason is because the earth orbits. Now, there's more reasons we need to tune into, like the tilt of Earth's rotational axis in respect to her orbital plane. And that's something we will focus on in part 2 of these golden time explorations. But for now, we want to tune into the seasons of the day, right? Wouldn't Alan Watts have to admit that his birth time was in a place that was in Earth's shadow, right? He was born at night. And he was born in wintertime. I just moved the Earth a little bit, right? Just very shortly after solstice, as I like to call December solstice, right? Winter solstice for the Northern Hemisphere, summer solstice for the Southern Hemisphere. But I'll speak Northern, I'll act locally. Winter, spring, summer, fall. All you got to do is call. And we'll ask James Taylor to bring us into connection with some examples that we'll look at today in exploring solar days. Here, the Beatles helping us through some of their beautiful solar songs, contemplate seasons of the year and these principal stations, these astronomical happenings. You know, it's so weird that most of us are aligned to this calendar that begins the year not at a global moment of time, like any of these moments you see on the right, but rather on this thing called midnight on January 1st, which is different in California than it is in New York. Usually I watch the New York ball drop so I can go to bed early these days, because I guess time is real since I'm getting a little older, right? Interestingly, though, we say time is kind of defined the Greenwich Meridian, which passes through London, England, right in our day of strange colonial time. Actually, the calendar flips first half a world away from there on Christmas Island, interestingly. So it's such a strange thing that we're using this day, well, interestingly, between Christmas and Epiphany, and there's some mysteries to be found there. But why not actually begin at a time like the sun's ingress tropical Capricorn, at the Tropic of Capricorn, a time called December solstice, or I will say South solstice, which is one fixed moment in time for the whole of Earth. If you've been looking at the songs on the left and the seasonal stations on the right as I've been speaking, you will see that they are certainly not matched. That is, if you know these Beatles tunes. I'm going to show my answers to which song matches with which of the seasonal stations here. If you'd rather play at home, well, close your eyes, maybe take a screenshot of this. Hold on. Okay. And perform the exercise. Here comes the sun. Da, da, da. It's been a long, cold, lonely winter. What comes after winter? Spring, right? Good day, sunshine. Burn my feet as they touch the ground, right? The sun is shining down. That's a very clear summer song by Paul McCartney, who we will see was born so close to summer solstice, even further north of Earth's equator than Alan Watts was born. I'll follow the sun. Is the song of autumn, I am sure. Someday you'll wake to see I've gone, but tomorrow will rain, so I'll follow the sun. In Sun King, that sounds like the height of the light. the lyrics too, if you read them on a sheet, everyone is laughing, everyone is happy, but they're really talking about this kind of forced jubilance, right? At the season of cheer where we celebrate life in the darkest hour, the darkest night, winter solstice. So the Beatles are really cool teachers around solar energies, and amazingly, and we don't need to see all of these planets to explore the truth, that we have one beetle from each season of the year. George Harrison, Pisces sun, the last month of Northern Hemisphere summer, right? For Paul, the last days of Northern Hemisphere spring. For Ringo, the first weeks of Northern Hemisphere summer. And for John, the first weeks of Northern Hemisphere autumn. Winter, spring, summer, and fall, a beetle for each. And my question is this: was one of the Beatles also each born during one of the specific seasons of the day? What are the seasons of the day? And we're not going to be able to see them on a quadrille like this. But first, before we look at more charts, let's journey out to space and witness the primary motion of Earth. We are north of our planet from this view. That point in the center is Earth's North Pole. Okay, Earth's rotational axis pointing straight at our face. We are hovering above Santa's place. And that would make this circle around our planet Earth from this point of view the equator, the plane of Earth's daily rotation. Perhaps you know this glyph. The circumpunt, it's the glyph for the sun. Earth's glyph is the cross of matter inside the circle of spirit. And from this view, if we watch the primary motion, Earth's daily rotation, we will see why. Half of Earth is always day, while the other half is always night. The terminator, which is the shadow line, doesn't always pass right through Earth's North Pole like this. That actually only happens 2 days each year, either autumnal or vernal equinox. But it's much easier to show equinox time in the shadow than it is at a solstice from this point of view. I would like to be technically accurate, so let me say those words, even though I know they have the potential harm of confusion. Importantly, this: Earth has hemispheres north of the equator and south of the equator too, but in any given moment's time, we can see these very important hemispheric truths. Half of Earth always in Earth's own shadow, right? And we call it night, and the other half of Earth is day, right? Experiencing the sunlight. So there's that, in this case, vertical line, day and night. Now that is a result of Earth's primary motion, which is Earth's daily rotation. These are the days of our lives. And I will suggest that the day is our primary astronomical experience, and maybe therefore should be our primary astrological experience, so it's not really treated that way in modern astrology, at least. Look, flowers open to receive the light and close at night to dream and rest. Shouldn't we? Right? The hormones are wired this way. You know, some of us were born at night, and perhaps the nighttime is the right time to play if you are, wired that way. Do we even have wires? I mean, I guess arteries and veins and nervous systems. Anyway, I digress. So every day the Earth spins on her axis, and this earthly motion causes here on Earth our experience of sunrise and sunset, day and night, right? We're going to focus on this place where I just dropped an Apple Records in Liverpool, England, where the 4 Beatles were born, just so we have a place that we could follow as we let the Earth spin. So here's the apple coming into day, and now into night, right? 24 hours time, day sunrise, and night sunrest or sunset. And between sun reach Sun rest, sun root, sunrise. Sun reach the middle of the day, sun sets into night. Sun root the middle of the night. These would be the words for the appropriate happenings of the sun at the astrological angles. Oh, now it might be weird to see sun reach or midheaven over there on the left. So let's like fix that and we'll put the midheaven at the top. Oops, now we have the ascendant on the right. And if you're brand new, those words will be foreign and that's okay. But let me just say this seems backwards if you know your chart. And the reason why is we are not watching Earth from space. We are watching space from Earth. So our relative experience of Earth's west to east rotation. And let me just show that here. The Earth, we're looking from the north, is spinning from the west to the east. And this is why the sun rises in New York before it does in LA. Our earthly experience of this daily west to east rotation of our planet is a daily east to west rotation of the heavens. And this is seen in the chart. So again, charts, map of the soul, a very beautiful truth, but very importantly, a map of the sky. And I want to start here in the school, even though this is not astronomy school, it's astrology school. Astronomy is half of our craft. So let's put our feet on the ground, which is the horizontal line of this cross of matter, which lives within the circle of spirit. We'll explore the circle of spirit in part 2 of our explorations into golden time, where we speak solar years, but here's solar days and the seasons of the days. Now that horizontal line is the horizon, okay? Literally the ground beneath your feet. And so it separates the chart wheel into hemispheres. There's above the ground and things we can see, and below the local ground and things we never could see. Well, until they rise up from the roots, because the earth is spinning, the sky spins. So this is the ground that we walk upon, or perhaps we might want to envision the ground that Mother was lying upon when we crowned into this world. On the left of the horizon in a chart wheel is the astrological ascendant, which I prefer to call the rise, because that's what's going down there. It's fascinatingly true in the modern astronomical gnosis that the eastern sky rises. Why? Because Earth is falling in that direction, right? Earth is spinning, falling towards the east. And so we experience the heavens rising in the east. And I will say, we descend into matter to lift the heavens up. In my opinion, we are here for healing, feeling, knowing, and growing, and your growth grows the all. We'll return to that in the fifth month of our explorations as we speak about soul path and just why am I here? And we will continue on that trip as we move along. Because what is spirit? What is soul? What is matter? Why do we incarnate? For me, these are the interesting questions that the astrological mysteries provide, perhaps not answers for, but certainly explorations, and bring us to, well, even greater questions. Okay, the sky rises in the east because the earth is falling in that direction. And in the northern hemisphere, as we at the end of this class will see, the sky then comes to reach its height in the south and then set in the west, then root down below in the north, below the ground. And I will show for the southern hemisphere at the end of the class now, but right now I want to stick with one hemisphere's experience. And we start with the northern hemisphere. Why? Because I sit here? No, because our charts were designed to express the embodied witness of the northern hemisphere sky. So we got to do a little magic trick for them to correspond with the southern hemisphere experience, and we'll do that a bit at the end of this wrap, okay? So the cross of matter in the chart is horizontally the horizon. What's in the middle of that word? You, which is near the middle of another word you see here, vertically, meridian. Okay, so I'll just speak technically first. The meridian is your local north-south great circle. It divides the sky in half, running through the cardinal directions, north and south, which we, in the second part of this Golden Time series, we will find that the cardinal directions host the cusps of the cardinal signs, and that the cardinal directions themselves are defined by Earth's rotational axis, Gaia's spine, the sword of our stone, the world tree. Okay, let's bring the sun in here because this will help us see. This is why we need the light, right? It's a strange thing that we say when the sun rises, it rises from the first house into the 12th house. Like, why would that solar day begin, if you will, like the appearance of the light, with the sun rising into the 12th house? It seems super backwards, and we are going to have to address that right now, because the truth is the chart goes both ways, and this has kind of been lost to the way that many teachers connect students to the astrological mysteries these days. One beautiful truth is that the 12th house is often called hidden things. Modern astrologers will sometimes say that's because of Neptune, and it's like, what? That's because of the sun. Why? Because when the sun rises in the east to illuminate the earth, what goes away? And the answer is the sky, at least the stars, the planets we can see at night, right? I mean, I've seen Venus with my eyeballs during daylight, but you've got to be initiated and know where to look. We've all seen the moon by day, right? But have you ever seen Saturn during the daytime? No. Have you ever seen Regulus after the sun rises? And the answer is no, right? The sun rises to illuminate the earth, but hides the sky. The sun will blind our eyes if we try to stare into its light. Sunlight is one light. It is great mystery, and more of that as we explore in the correspondences, and just what does the sun mean and what do we do with it in a chart. And some would say it depends on whether you were born by night or born by day. That will be part of our explorations in our next astrology class. Following the Aquarius class, we will speak about sect light and day births and night births and day planets and night planets, which is obvious for sun and moon, though we do see moon by day. A little odder when we bring in, Venus and Mars and Jupiter and Saturn and Mercury, who can go both ways in all things. So the sun rises in the east. It does not rise due east, but 2 days each year. That's an important thing that we will explore in the Gemini month of this golden year, as we tune into horoscopos, the ascendant, the hour marker, Iacos, the rudder of the chart, and the steersman. But for now, let's bring the sun from this place called the ascendant, because why? In the east, the sky ascends. And I like to call it the rise. And from the rise, the sun moves through the 12th, 11th, and 10th houses to the reach. Many astrologers very incorrectly suggest that the MC, the media cele, the middle of the heavens, is directly above your head. No. I should say, to be accurate, that is true twice a day if you live between Earth's Tropic of Capricorn and Cancer. Here where I sit in California's Bay Area, about 38 degrees north of the equator, the same latitude as Athens, Greece, the sun will never, ever, 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 ever be seen directly above our head. I mean, if it is, we're probably dead because some cataclysm went down, okay? But the sun at the midheaven is the sun's daily height. And it happens exactly halfway between sunrise and sunset. Just as when Jupiter is at the midheaven, Jupiter is culminating halfway in time between Jupiter's rise and Jupiter's rest in the west. So the sun reaches every day, reaches daily height, higher in the summer, lower in the winter, right? But every day the sun culminates or reaches its highest height at the meridian, at the midheaven. In the northern hemisphere, this happens when the sun souths and the shadow of the sundial points north. So for those of you in the School of Astrology, I will insist that you build a super simple sundial and do literal shadow work. It will change your life in the way you astrologize and literally the way you live, because it's going to help you in profound ways simply reconnect to organic, natural, golden time. And it will help you get directions, as you will find. Okay, so from the reach, the sun begins to descend every day, moving into the house where the sun is said to rejoice, the ninth. Why? Because that's when the sun is on high, but descends through the ninth and then the eighth as the shadow gets long, and into the seventh, and now to rest in the west. You know, a place that's associated with relationship. Think about this, like in the west, the sky and the earth are always married. And amazingly, the sky is sinking down to kiss the earth because the earth is actually rising up to kiss the sky. Do you see what I mean? So much more to say about why the seventh speaks for relationship, whether in one where we kiss or one where you throw darts. Okay. From the seventh, now the sun is resting in the west, and this is dusk, you know, sunset, a beautiful time of the year where it's really nice to have a hand to hold and observe that beautiful time, this magical time, but also this like transformational time, because this, of course, sun setting brings us from day to night. Sun continues to descend, but now in the underworld, sixth house, fifth house, fourth house, and rooting down below, halfway in time between sunset and the following sunrise, sun roots at the IC, the Imam Cheli, the bottom of the heavens. Is this hell? I'm going to walk north right now to close a door. I'll be right back. Amazingly and oddly, our clock time these days begins the day in the middle of the night. And very importantly, 12 a.m. on your clock is not this moment. This moment you feel in your bones. If you're outside, it's cold, and then all of a sudden it gets really cold. And by temperament, as I will share with you as we move into fourness, we move at this time from cold and dry to cold and wet. And it's, I mean, like seasonally speaking, it's like moving from autumn to winter, right? So seasons of the day. Winter solstice is the birth of the light. Sing a Christmas song, right? The sun is born. And by day, that happens in the middle of the night. Why do we say that about winter? Well, we're coming out of the longest night, right? And every day after winter solstice, the nights get shorter, the days get longer. It takes a long time. We need to go until the resurrection at spring equinox for the day length to equal night length, right? But the climb begins in winter, just as the climb begins in the middle of the night. So there is an interesting beauty to the idea of beginning time in the middle of the night, right? But of course, we don't have evidence of the sun's climbing, which happens through the third, second, and first house until the sun rises. I mean, maybe shortly before, and the birds chirp, right? And we can see the dawning light, the beams of the sun rising even before the disk, right? But we can still stare at Venus when she's a morning star. Currently, as I'm speaking, Venus and Mars. But then again, the sun rises into the 12th and hides the heavens. Only sunlight is available to us at these times, and Earth, like clouds. Yeah. So it's a really weird thing to see the truth that the sun rises into the 12th. But so much of our astrological study is fixed on stopping time, like a birth chart or a chart for an election, like beginning a business or whatever. Yeah. And after that fixed moment of time, the stars in the first will be the first to rise. Well, the stars in the 12th have to reach and rest and root before they can rise again. So more of that as we move forward. We won't really speak about, I'll speak about, but I won't necessarily teach that astronomy deeply until we get into horoscopos in the Gemini month. We have a lot of astrological classes, if you will, or classes tuned into correspondences and number magic and sacred geometry mystery to play with before we do too much more of the embodied astronomy. Most importantly, I want to bring your attention to this, and this is like already way too much mind. At the end, we will speak very soon about a class or a practice, right? A living class as a student of Earth and the heavens that I will invite you to participate with, and that will help you embody this emotion, embody this understanding, bring it out of mind, brain mind, and into body mind. And of course, the heart exists between the two. My friends, the art of the chart starts in the heart. So we really want to embrace that field with a knowing mind and an experiencing body. All right. This is called the fourth quadrant, and this the third, and this the second, and this the first. Now, it's an odd thing, once again, that just as the sun rises from the first house into the 12th house and then goes 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, backwards, we also go backwards through the quadrants. The fourth quadrant is the 12th, 11th, and 10th houses, at least in a quadrant house system. And let's just leave that. It's like, what is a quadrant house system? We'll play that deeply down the road. I will speak about one for your practice here in just a bit. So the sun rises into the fourth quadrant and then reaches and shifts at that time of reaching to the third quadrant, where it descends every day from its height to at midday to its rest. And we move from day to night as the sun then falls into the second quadrant, where it descends through the underworld to hell, where it is reborn every day and begins to rise through the third, second, and first houses, which are quadrant 1. So we just have to deal with the truth that these houses appear to be numbered backwards. But again, they are not. Why? Because when we fix a moment in time, it is the stars of the first house which will then be first to rise. Like you'll see I'm turning here because this is the direction east. Right now, the stars in the 12th here above the eastern horizon have already risen. But in this moment's time, the next stars to rise are down below the ground in the first house. They will be first to rise. And then the stars of the second house will succeed the stars of the first to the ascendant, which is why the second is called a succedent house. So more of that down the road. We don't want to get lost in terminology. We already have all these numbers and arrows on this image here. It's getting more complex. The answer to release ourselves from the confusion of the complexity is to get outside and connect with the moving light with our eyes and with our body mind. Now, we can call these the seasons of the day. Winter coming from midnight to spring equinox is like sunrise, and summer solstice is like midday, the sun at the midheaven. And summer then would end as we get into the night. That's like fall or autumn, where the sun is now falling below the ground until it roots in the darkest hour, it said, right? The middle of the night, sun at the IC. Most of you astrology students will look at those seasons and say, wait a second, like that's backwards to how I know the chart. So right now, we want to actually go into the belly of the dragon of confusion and unpack these things and bring some resolution to understanding why, through understanding why there's very common confusion in regards to this clockwise motion of the chart, this primary motion of the chart. And a lot of this is because of how astrology is taught these days. Like astrology often teaches that signs and houses are the same thing. And they aren't, as we will see. But before, let's just contemplate this beautiful question. So which part of the day were you born? Like, very importantly, were you born by day or by night? Is it surprising that ancient astrology suggests there's literally different rules for folks who were born with the sun above the horizon line, which we call day, versus people who were born after the sun has set and before the sun rises to begin the next solar day, or at least energetic day or astrological day? Like, night and day is completely different, right? But there's also times of the day and there's times of the night. Like, were you born during the day between the time of sunrise and sunreach, right? Which is not only light, but the light is growing. The shadow's getting shorter because the sun is climbing in the sky. As the sun moves in the northern hemisphere sky, like the hands of the clock, clockwise. If you turn your back to the light and do some shadow work, you'll see that your shadow moves clockwise too. Like, this is literally where clocks in that motion of an analog clock, remember those, is born. And why simple sundial practice will change your life. I assure you of that. And help you get direction. So were you born with the sun in the 12th house or the 11th house or the 10th house? If so, you were born during what I'll call the spring of the day, between sunrise and sunreach. Maybe you were born with the sun in the 9th, where the sun is said to rejoice, or in the 8th, talk about death because the day is about to die, or the 7th, relationship, this place of the marriage of the heavens and the earth. If you were born with the sun in the 9th or the 8th or the 7th, that's like the summer of the day. Now, it's weird to think about the summer, meaning the sun is like decreasing in light, the shadow getting longer. But y'all, that's what happens in the seasons of the year too, right? Summer solstice is the height of the light. That's actually when the sun begins falling. It just happens very slowly until fall, or sometime before, right? Until autumnal equinox. You'll see this in the seasons of the day too. Like when the sun reaches its highest height at midday, it like very slowly is starting to come down. It's almost like at midday, the sun's moving more like sideways through the sky. When the sun gets to the 8th house, it's now like honestly and earnestly starting to come down. But it's also a time where it said like your skin can burn even more than at midday, which is an amazing thing, because in a weird way, we could relate that time, like the middle of the summer of the day, I'm going to speak northern hemisphere, to like the middle of the sign of Leo, the middle of the summer of the northern hemisphere year. Have you ever related Leo in the 8th house? Like most of you will say that's absurd if you've studied astrology, and especially modern astrology, for some time. And I'm not trying to tell you that Leo and the 8th are like completely connected and corresponding? No. I mean, that will be true in your chart if you were born with Capricorn rising. Leo will be your 8th sign. Signs and houses are totally different things. Seasons of the day and seasons of the year are totally different things, but the daily motion of rise, reach, rest, and root seems to be committed to the same energetic cycle of yin and yang as spring, summer, winter, or fall and winter. Right? I mean, this is why, by the way, looking ahead, the astrological technique of secondary progressions, where we compare days of life with years of life, has an energetic and natural time resonance. All right, were you born with the sun descending from its midday reach until the rest in the west? What does that mean? I love when I sit with a client to say, oh, wow, you were born at the penultimate hour of a really long night. Can you imagine if clouds allowed on this cold winter night, the stars crisp and shining before the rising of the sun would end that coldness and begin the warmth? Right? You know, those things that for me help us kind of reconnect to Earth, right? I mean, we see in some of the ancient charts, like literally the wind was blowing from this direction. We heard the hoo of the owl, right? Like, I want to see that Earth, the most important planet on our charts first. Were you born between the time when the sun sets in the west and roots down below the Earth, the sun in the 6th, 5th, or 4th houses? Were you born after the sun began its daily climb, although we can't be sure until it finds that ascendant again on the eastern horizon? Were you born with the sun in the 1st quadrant, the 3rd, 2nd, or 1st houses? It's night, but the sun is climbing, right? So it's either day and the sun is climbing, spring, 4th quadrant. It's day, but the sun is sinking, summer, 3rd quadrant. It's night and the sun is still descending, autumn, 2nd quadrant, or it's night, but the sun at least is climbing from the hell depths, right? That's like winter, climbing up from the longest hour, the longest night, the 1st quadrant. Now, again, these very seasons are going to feel completely backwards. We need to be careful here, of course, because these are words that we use for seasons of the year, and the yearly motion and the daily motion are in opposite directions. Okay, before we explore that, let's explore this question. We have a beetle from every season of the year. Do we have a beetle from every season of the day? We're not going to see in a chart like this that just has 0 Aries on the left, the so-called natural zodiac. We're going to have to look at 4 charts, a chart for each. Now, if we really want to know about these beings, like we want to know about Mercury and Venus and Mars and Jupiter, Saturn, the moon. I mean, especially maybe for the 3 who were born at night. So there gives the answer, no, we do not have a beetle from every season of the day. Look, it's going to be a lot easier to explore this if we take the other planetus, the other wonders away, and look only to the one light of the sunlight. You know, it's a very important truth that the sun is the only one in the chart that can tell us the season of the year. Of course, you need to know something about where the native was born. Right? Like if I look at Paul McCartney's 26-degree and 36 arc minute Gemini sun, I know that because Liverpool is in the northern hemisphere, that this is one of the longest days of the year. This is the end of spring, just as we're coming into summer solstice, the sun's ingress, tropical Cancer, when it shines directly above Earth's Tropic of Cancer, as close to Liverpool, England as it can get. And I know that since Liverpool is so far north of Earth's equator, it's an exceptionally long day. In fact, for Paul McCartney, there were almost 17 hours of daylight and only slightly more than 7 hours of darkness on the day of his birth. He's born at the last days of spring, and I'll say in the last minutes of the spring of day, because the sun has sprung up to rise in the east and is about to reach, right? So this is like a confusing thing for many astrology students. When they see the sun in the 10th house, they're used to, oh, well, 10 and then 11 and then 12, but the daily motion is in the other direction, as we've seen, like a clock in the chart, clockwise. So the sun is just about to reach at the time of Paul McCartney's birth. We're in the last days of year, season, spring, and I'll say in the last minutes of daily spring as well. John Lennon, interestingly, right, in the first weeks of Northern Hemisphere autumnal equinox, of course, in the Northern Hemisphere is the sun's ingress, tropical Libra. John's sun, 1616 Libra, right? So about 16 days after that autumnal equinox. And I'll say right at the beginning of the autumn of the day, right? Why do I say that? Because the sun has set and now it's falling into the darkest hour, which is like a winter solstice. So amazingly, we have Paul from this kind of expression in the last days of yearly spring, in the last minutes really of daily spring, and we have John in the first days or at least weeks of yearly autumn, and in the first minutes of daily autumn. What an amazing agreement. And you can feel the spring in Paul and the autumn in John, especially when they started separating. Ringo, different trip, flipping the script. Ringo born at the very beginning, the first couple of weeks of Northern Hemisphere summer by year. And I'll say like at the very end of the autumn of the day when the sun is just about to root down below at the IC. Same time of the day for George Harrison. He's a little bit further from the middle of the night, depending, not like irregardless of what clock time says, by the way. The sun for both George and Ringo, at least in this particular house system, which is the Placidus house system, both of them have the sun in the 4th, where it goes just on its way to rooting down below. So I'll call that the end of the autumn of the day, but George is born in the end of the winter of the year, and Ringo at the end of, or the very beginning of the summer of the year, okay? Where were you born in the year? Where were you born in the day? How does that help you connect to Earth? So yes, we do have a beetle, George in the winter, Paul in the spring, Ringo in the summer, and John in the autumn. We do have a beetle from every season of the year, but not every season of the day. In fact, Paul was the only one born during the day, Ringo and George in the middle of the night, and John just as we've moved from daylight to nighttime and that beautiful dusk transformational energy in the West. This is a clock not too far from where those beetles were born. And we see this often, actually, especially if you're cruising around England. These clocks that feature a backwards zodiac. Right, so this is kind of obscure. I'm going to bring you into a much more modern image that's pretty popular of a backwards zodiac, the so-called wheel of the year. I mean, amazingly, folks who are practicing with these seasonal energies and the cross quarters and the equinox and solstice dates, I love that. It's like natural time, but they typically show the sky backwards like this, right? Like if you just think about the left would be the ascendant, and you look at Libra, they're having risen, and Virgo about to rise. That can't happen, friends. That is backwards. I'm going to turn this upside down so we can like map the probable reason why is folks are so addicted to clockwise motion that they want to do spring, summer, autumn, and winter clockwise. Now, however, we've seen this beautiful potential reason why. The seasons of the day do work in that direction. The seasons of the year do not. So let me just bring in a chart wheel, right? And we see the zodiacal order, right? So like Taurus would never rise before Aries. It can't happen. Like beg that can't happen, or else we will all be dead. Like literally the earth would have to stop spinning and start moving in the other direction. And it's that kind of idea is not your friend. All right. So we see these backward zodiacs often, like, and it makes sense that we would see them on Northern Hemisphere clocks, because people are connecting to this idea of the seasons of the day and comparing them to the tropical signs that host the seasons of the year. And it's a confusing thing that the chart goes both ways. And I don't mean to add to that, but I just want to speak to that because we have to enter the belly of that beast, that dragon called confusion, to help it purr once again. Okay, so as we see in the lower left, the sun moves clockwise through the Northern Hemisphere sky. And when we can see the sun, that means the sun is above the ground. That clockwise motion above the horizon in the Northern Hemisphere sky is from the left to the right. Like if we're looking at the motion of the sun in the Northern Hemisphere sky, which moves from the east to the south at midday to the rest in the west, that is a left to right clockwise motion. This is why our clocks do this clockwise, or we used to call it the sunwise motion. And I will suggest this is why cultures of solar worship, now, I mean, we can talk about deities in this regard, but let me at least just say solar calendar cultures that are using like sun months instead of moon months are reading typically and writing from the left to the right. Yeah, like English, right? We're literally writing in the direction of the movement of the sky, at least on the zodiacal side, like the movement of the sun and moon and Venus and Jupiter too, okay? And Sirius and Regulus and the constellations and the signs of the zodiac, which are different things, as we will see in part 3 of this Golden Time transmission. So you will find, go look, that most solar calendar cultures write from the left to the right. And we will see and explore this much more deeply in the silver year and next year of the School of Astrology, that lunar cultures, lunar calendar folks, okay, like the Hebrew calendar, for example, is tuned to months or months. They write from the right to the left. Check out right to left script and check out the calendars employed by the cultures that write in that direction. All right. Let's bring this back to the zodiac's proper order. And this, friends, is like the heart of the confusion and why I find so many astrology students have a hard time connecting to the movement of the planets through the houses clockwise in the chart wheel. Even though literally you go outside, if you face south, Northern Hemispherians, and watch the sky move, you will see it moves clockwise. Go watch the sunrise. This will be a practice I invite you to explore this week, this month, this year, this lifetime. Reconnect your body, mind to the actual natural time, golden time, earthstrological, earthstronomical experience. Come back to Earth. Seasons of the day are about houses, or if we speak seasons, are about these quadrants. They are absolutely 100% not about the signs. And this is where I find a serious disconnect that is so hard for me to address with astrology students. It's kind of like the more modern astrology you've learned, the harder it is to reconnect the chart to nature in regards to the clockwise daily motion, because we are so used to watching the sun move through the signs during the course of the year. It's, if you align quadrants and signs like this, it's like, great. But look, the sun's secondary motion, which is its movement through the signs, the yearly motion, has nothing to do with the houses. It has nothing to do with the quadrants. I'm wishing I had remembered to animate the slide in such a way that those quadrant words would disappear before now, but I'm going to have to push a magic button. Gone, gone, gone. Now, it's a beautiful truth that when the sun, as we watch by transit against a fixed moment of time, like a birth chart, or the moon every month getting around the signs, or when planets are moving direct, they move from Aries to Taurus to Gemini, or they will move from your first house to your second house to your third to your fourth house. They will move from your first quadrant to your second quadrant, etc. Right? Like that is true. And this is one of the other reasons why it is difficult for modern students, I think, to look at the clockwise motion, the daily motion in the chart, because we are so used to fixing our own birth charts in the middle and then watching how planets in current time are moving against our natal chart, which we call transits. You got to take yourself out of the thing, or actually just put yourself on Earth in the moment now and watch the sky rise and reach and rest and root. So let me just read this to really help this land. Sun's annual dance through the signs of the zodiac is our experience of Earth's secondary motion, our annual orbit or revolution about the sun, the year. And that will be the focus of our exploration, signs, in part 2 of this exploration of golden time. The secondary motion, Earth's second motion, our annual orbit, is all about signs and has nothing to do with the heavenly houses. Well, we want to talk about house time now. We can see an interesting energetic correspondence between how Aries is taught today and how the first house is taught today. They've very much been conflated. You will hear astrologers teach it this way. Aries is the first house. You'll even see people take it much further than that. Aries equals the first house. Is therefore, because the first house equals Aries, it equals Mars because Mars rules Aries. So Aries is the first, is Mars, and the second is Taurus, is Venus, and the third is Gemini, and therefore is Mercury. It's like a simple system that can help you get into astrology, but gosh, it really gets us stuck and separates us from the actual heavenly motions, right? Like how many of you were born with Aries rising? If you're in the Northern Hemisphere, less than a 12th of you. And there's a beautiful reason. Like if we have Taurus rising, then Taurus is the first sign. And Gemini is the second. I was born with Gemini rising with a Scorpio sun. Okay, so I was born, Scorpio sun in the autumn of the Northern Hemisphere year. I was born in Boston, autumn, right? Very beginning of Scorpio, not where I put the sun here, but I want to just talk whole signs to keep it simple. And I was born at the beginning of the autumn of the day, because when Gemini rises, the opposite sign Sagittarius is setting. And just as Scorpio rises before Sagittarius, it reaches before Sagittarius and it rests before Sagittarius. So I was born with Scorpio sun, autumn of the year, like on its way from rest to root, which I'll call the autumn of the day. The autumn of the year speaks about the sun moving from Libra to Scorpio to Sagittarius through the signs. That is an anti-clockwise. That's the seasonal direction of the sun. But the autumn of the day, I'm speaking about from rest to root, right? That's a clockwise motion. The daily motion is clockwise. The chart goes both ways. I can't tell you how many astrologers will say, because I have the sun in the 6th, it's like Virgo. It's hard for me actually to remove myself from those teachings, and I'm not sure that I want to 100%, because there is an interesting correspondence there. But folks will say, oh no, a Scorpio sun, that's the 8th house, but it's not the 8th of a Gemini rising chart. Okay, so we're in the belly of the beast, of the confusion, and like the why it works. If you're not confused yet, I'm not doing my job. Okay. We want to tune into this primary motion. So the secondary motion is through the signs, the year, but I want to bring you into a practice to connecting to the clockwise motion. And all you have to do is get outside and watch the sun rise and reach and rest en route. Let me hide my camera because it's hiding this language. The primary motion, okay, Earth's first motion is the daily east to west rotation of the sky, which results from Earth's daily west to east rotation, right? Earth is spinning west to east, and our experience of that spinning, that daily rotation from Earth as earthlings is the heavens spinning from the east to the west, carrying with them the sun and the moon and Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn too, and the stars of the zodiac moving clockwise, at least to the northern hemisphere sky, from the east to the west, through the south, moving left to right, clockwise. And the chart is based upon the northern hemisphere sky. The primary motion is clockwise in the chart wheel, which, like the clock, models northern hemisphere astronomy. The primary motion carries sun, moon, planets, and signs through the heavenly houses every day. Now, it's a confusing thing if you start studying some traditional astrology, and you will in the School of Earthstrology. You'll study modern and traditional alike, reaching the branches into new space while rooting down into the heart of the earth and the ancient tradition too. You will find that the ancients, like old Hellenistic astrologers, called signs houses. And I will show you why they are terrestrial houses. Whereas the houses, as we call them today, were called the places. So terrestrial houses for signs, heavenly houses for, as we call them today, houses, or they used to be called the places. It's a confusing thing, adding to this confusion of the chart going both ways. All right, let's move forward. So the primary motion is called the same. Why? Because all planets generally rise, reach, rest, and root at the same rate, which is what? The rate of Earth's spin. The sky spins because the Earth spins. The Earth spins in about 24 hours. So the sky spins in about 24 hours, and that spinning sky is the same for the sun as it is for Saturn. Now, there's a little reasons why that gets tweaked and why I have to write generally to be completely accurate, and that's beyond the scope, at least today. Finally, the primary motion is also called sunwise because it is most dramatically expressed by the sun. Okay, a moonrise is a beautiful thing to behold, but only the sun takes us from day to night at set and from night to day at rise, right? All right, this is the practice. This is a very simple practice with which you have engaged, but I implore you to engage again and again and again. Will change your life, will help you get these things out of the mind and into the body mind, and then it all makes sense, right? When we're looking at this on a computer screen, and especially when we like looking at static charts, which is why I take the time to animate these things, because the sky is animated, it moves, it's dynamic. But when we're looking this on a screen, in a book, on a static page, it's like, huh, what? That's backwards. That's so weird. No, it doesn't go clockwise. What? Like these arrows make it look like it's going backward through the signs, which it doesn't. I want to bring your attention to that here because we're going to get this transit chart moving. Okay. Now look, the transit chart does not have some fixed moment of time inside. We're just going to watch the sky spin, carrying the planets with it. Why? Because the Earth is spinning and we are standing on a spinning planet, a daily motion. Okay. We will see that not only the planets, right, move from the rise to the reach, the rest, and the root, but the signs do too. So if I took that chart and I just drew a static clockwise arrow and said that's the daily motion, it would look in this case like it's moving from Capricorn to Sagittarius to Scorpio to Libra. No, we're going to see Capricorn rises and then Aquarius rises and then Pisces rises and then Aries rises. It's the zodiacal order. Okay. So this is the practice. Get outside and connect your body mind to the primary motion, the spinning of the sky. Follow the sun from the rise to the reach, to the rest, to the roots, and allow the light and the darkness of night to teach you about the heavenly houses. Now, we want to know what it is, like in this case, on this anyway, equal sign wheel that I'm looking at. What is it for Mars to be in the 11th, for Venus to be in the 12th? But I will tell you that the nature of those houses, the reasons, the delineations, what we say about those houses, it comes from the journey of the sun. And when we get to the Leo month this year, I will speak about the traditional view of so-called accidental dignity of the planetary joys, where planets are strong in the houses. Many modern astrologers teach the sun is the 5th, sun Leo 5th. Why would the sun want nighttime? The 5th house is below the ground. It shows us how disconnected our craft has gotten from earthly experience. Traditionally, the sun is said to rejoice in the 9th. Why? Because that's where the sun is on high at the midheaven and where the sun has completed its daily climb and now gets to walk down the mountain, which is a great feeling. You've been on a hike. Go on a hike before sunrise. Experience the rising of the sun. Stay out there. Watch your shadow shorten as the sun climbs in the sky. Watch the sun from the rise to the reach to the rest of the root. Reclaim your astronomical embodied experience of the heavenly happenings. For when you bring your astrology back to earth, your astrology will be much more aligned to what matters. This is the place of matter. All right, let's let the sky spin here. So there we have it, all of the planets and the signs, rising, reaching, resting, rooting. Follow the sun will teach you. Only the sun brings us from day to night. Like we couldn't even see Jupiter at this time. But we will see that Capricorn sets and then Aquarius sets and then Pisces sets. That is the zodiacal order that planets travel when direct, as moon and sun always are, right? It's not different, this clockwise motion. Scorpio is rising right now, which takes a while to rise in the Northern Hemisphere. Then Sagittarius, then Capricorn will rise, right? The sun at this time in Capricorn. So there's that rising of the Capricorn sun. The moon at the time that's shown in the chart, full moon opposite the sun in Cancer. Cancer sets when Capricorn rises. The full moon sets at sunrise, right? So just reconnecting. Now I'm gonna take the other planets away because really following the light. And you see that square bounced in because I want to highlight the truth that for the ease of less confusion, I elected to cast this chart and to animate the daily motion on what's called an equal house system chart, where every house cusp begins with the same degree of the zodiac as the ascendant. You can see in this case, they're all 2406. The sun is about to rise. It's the very end of the winter of the day, if you will. But in the first month of the winter of the year, if we're talking Northern Hemisphere, like Richmond, California, where this chart is cast for, I would encourage you when you're out and about to track the sun's movement through the Placidus houses. Now, you students of the School of Earthstrology will see why in our sacred geometry practices and our connection to aspect theory and the houses of the houses and the mystery of the 144 on the 12 sign wheel and other things that we will be getting into, why I will invite you and encourage you to play with whole sign or equal sign astrology charts. They help us to see number in space, which is the sacred geometry of the thing. I've seen so many astrologers who can't really see aspects because they're used to working with weird kind of bent charts like this. This is a Placidus house system chart. I like to cast porphyry charts because it's what I see in space at night with my face. But by day, the Placidus houses make so much sense. And you students of the school can watch the Magical Time bonus class to really understand that. Because as the sun is rising to reach and resting to root, it takes 2 planetary hours for the sun, and only the sun, to move through each of the Placidus house systems. But then you get this weird thing, like it looks like the midheaven is leaning towards the east. It's not. You may have seen that the sun just rose. I was doing real time, 1 second per 1 second, just to remind us, here we'll speed it up, that if you're going to go do this on Earth, it takes time. It takes patience. It takes presence. And it's really so great, because how much do we students starved for information? We've got this astrology bug. We're in front of the computer so often. We're learning, we're reading these books. We need to also take time to integrate and to go outside. And when we do, when we see an experience like this, which is midday, we will remember and clearly understand why the sun is said to rejoice in the 9th house. It's just obvious. But you get out and you watch the sun moving through the 8th house and you look around. What animals and birds do you see, right? What's up with the people of Earth at the time when the sun's moving and dropping down through the 7th house at the end of the day, and we see couples holding hands to watch the sunset, this beautiful time, and we can think of the 7th in relationship, right? Well, what about the sun getting into the mysteries of night? And of course, we want to experience, and hopefully with our eyes, please, all of the planets. Right? You might want to just begin with watching the sun and the moon. And when the sun is low in the sky, that's true for Capricorn in the northern hemisphere, right? A full moon, like a Cancer moon reflecting Capricorn light, or in this case, the Leo moon, very close. You just saw the moon change signs. When the sun is low, the full moon is high. And we're going to unpack that as we move into the second transmission of Golden Time and speak about the year and the signs. Okay. So please reclaim your embodied connection to the motion of the day, the spinning clockwise daily motion of the heavens from the east to the west. When you do this in the northern hemisphere, you won't see the sun root down below in the north. I'll tell you though, if you're up that late, the middle of the night, you'll feel it in your bones. It's an amazing support for the truth of astrology. I mean, look, the primary motion proves that astronomical cycles influence our energetic experience as earthlings. You want proof of that? How about day and night? Okay. So you will find that the sun rises in the east, not due east, however. And when I show you, you students of the School of Earthstrology, like this very simple construction of an ancient kind of sundial, stick in the ground, doing shadow work, reclaiming your connection to the directions, you will then be able to use your directional wheel to see that the sun does not rise due east every day. The ascendant is very rarely due east too, as we will explore when we get to the horoscopos class in the Gemini month. But Eastern, for sure, whether you're in the northern hemisphere, the southern hemisphere, you know, it's definitely true that the eastern sky rises. Why? Because the Earth is spinning in the opposite direction, falling towards the eastern horizon. And in the northern hemisphere, as I've said, we're going to move from rising in the east, whether it's the sun or the moon or Venus, Mars, whatever, to reaching in the south. Now, if you're between the tropics, that can happen directly above your head. It gets confusing there. It gets confusing if you're north of the Arctic Circle too. We're not going to trip on that right now. I just want to show you that, like the clock, the northern hemisphere clockwise motion of the sky by day takes us from roots in the north to rise in the east, to reach in the south, to rest in the west. Now, there's a lot of confusion around why Kemet, the land we now call Egypt, called Northern Egypt, Lower Egypt. and southern Egypt, upper Egypt. We know this is true. These were these different kingdoms. And it's typically taught that the reason why is that the Nile, obviously so crucial to Egyptian life, runs from the south to the north. Right. And so that means, of course, from somewhere far away in the desert, it's coming from up on a mountaintop as rivers do, and it's making its way down from the south to getting from upper to lower to feed into the Mediterranean Sea, the Nile Delta. And maybe that's true, but I will suggest that this is because these were solar worshiping beings, which is clear when you study Egyptian quote unquote mythology. So let me turn this around, like the chart and the experience of the sun in the northern hemisphere sky. Why is northern Egypt called lower Egypt? Because that's when the sun is low down below the ground. Why is southern Egypt called upper Egypt? Because that in the northern hemisphere south is where the sun is on high. You look at the crowns for upper Egypt, that's the crown on the left. You can see that kind of reaching up for the sun. The crown on the right is the crown for lower Egypt, northern Egypt, which feels a lot more lunar to me. All right, and I wanted to show these beings sitting back to back because we will end, as promised, with an image of the southern hemisphere sky too. Truthfully, when you southern hemispherians get outside, you will see that the sun rising in the east and resting in the west brings you counterclockwise, because in the southern hemisphere, at least south of the Tropic of Capricorn always, the sun reaches in the north. So your rise, reach, rest, and root in the southern hemisphere is counterclockwise. It's literally opposite to what you will see in the chart, because the chart wheel is designed to express the northern hemisphere experience of the sky. It's just a reality you have to deal with. It doesn't mean it doesn't work in the southern hemisphere. It's a model. I would be a proponent for actually flipping the chart wheel and putting the ascendant on the right for southern hemisphere beings if the tropics didn't add a whole nother level of confusion that we're not going to get into today. But the truth is, northern hemisphere tropics work like the southern hemisphere sometimes. Southern hemisphere tropics work like the northern hemisphere sometimes. So you can't really just say, like, flip them around between the hemispheres. Some astrologers are doing that, and they're completely ignoring the importance of the tropics and like Arctic latitudes as well. But generally speaking, we can put the descendant here like aligned to Western together, which is great because the rising is in the east and the resting is in the west, no matter where on earth you're looking from. But the truth is, and this is the way that it's like really easy to remember it, is that the northern hemisphere sky, the daily motion works like the clock, like the hands of the clock, which are literally designed a northern hemisphere astronomical experience. Whereas, I mean, it's the southern hemisphere where the angles actually work like a compass, where we typically put north up, right? In the northern hemisphere chart, north is down. That confuses tons, like most students at first too, because we're used to looking at compasses in maps and globes with north up, right? So there you go, the northern hemisphere experience. You're going to see that the sun moves through your sky like the hands of the clock. And if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're going to see like the compass rose. You will find your rise, reach, rest, and root is east, north, west, and south. All right, friends, this primary motion, the truth of day and night, is our primary astronomical experience. Right? So a lot of people try to defend the truth that astronomical cycles influence our energetic experience as earthlings by getting straight to the tides of the moon and the truth that we, like our beautiful planet, are mostly made of water. Why should our water not be pulled by the phases too? Beautiful. But how about starting with day and night? Do you feel the same at 3 a.m. as you do at 3 p.m.? If you say yes, you're lying. Okay. Astronomical cycles influence our energetic experience as earthlings. That's not the only power of astrology, but it does support what I love to say. Astrology is so much more than some symbolic language alone. Astrology is the poetic breath of nature. So when we renature our astrology, we will remember the roots of the rules and the proofs of the astrological equations we use. Astrology is not a way in if we use it as a way out. Turn that around, start with the most important planet, the one that you chose. Perhaps she chose you, probably both. I'm not exactly sure how it works, though we will be contemplating incarnation. But of course, my friends, I am speaking about planet Earth. Our study of the heavens is our study of Earth. Astrology is Earthstrology. Welcome to the school. I'm glad you got to play, and thanks for spending some time exploring golden time, natural time with me here today. This is your friendly astronaut, Gemini Brett, signing off. Friends, I will see you in